Family excluded me from their Hawaii trip, so I exposed my sister's secret affair and my parents' shady business deal. Now their lives are crumbling and they're begging for my forgiveness. So I recently did something and I'm here to ask whether I did the right thing or not basically, since this has pretty much ruined everything for my parents and my sister and I feel kind of guilty. For context, I, 24F, have an older sister Melissa, 27F, and she's pretty much the golden child of the family. My parents love her to bits, and they have never bothered to hide it. If there is anything that I can learn from anybody in the world, it's Melissa. Unfortunately, I know Melissa much better than they know her, and she's not all that great. She likes to pretend that she has this picture-perfect life on social media, with her perfect husband and her perfect daughter and all that, but I know the truth. I know that she has been cheating on her husband since even before they got married and that she's with him just for financial security. Also because our parents and her in-laws are business partners, and their marriage was basically a business deal for the parents. From what I know, though, my brother-in-law has always been very infatuated with Melissa and is serious about their marriage, but that's not been the case with her. My dad has been friends with Melissa's father-in-law since their business school days, and even though they hadn't been particularly close, they started keeping in touch after they met at a party thrown by a common friend a couple of years ago. At the time, my dad's business was not doing too well, and I guess that's how my parents came up with this very clever plan. They decided that they were going to become good friends with Melissa's father-in-law and eventually approached him with the intention of setting their kids up together. Melissa would get married to his son, and then they would approach him to come on board as an investor. In this way, the business would stay in the family and they would also get a financial boost because Melissa's father-in-law is extremely wealthy. And as sneaky as it is, I have to give it to them, it was a pretty great plan and it did work out in their favor. Melissa and her husband were introduced to each other by their parents, they dated for a couple of months, and then, at the insistence of their parents, they got married 2 years ago and had their first child last year. I don't know about her husband, but I know for a fact that Melissa had been taught everything about my parents' plan and she knew that she was being used to help my dad's failing business, but she didn't care because she was marrying into a family and that's all that mattered to her. I was aware of everything that was happening, but unfortunately, I couldn't exactly do anything about it, even though I was disgusted by how unscrupulous my parents and my sister were being. It's not that I didn't want to tell my brother-in-law anything and warn him about what he was marrying into, but honestly, if I did that, I knew that I would be screwing up my future as well. And it was really selfish of me, but I had to keep my mouth shut. It's not like I hadn't protested against it. I knew that what they were doing was wrong and I had even told them that I was going to rat them out if they didn't stop the wedding from happening, but my parents made it very evident to me that if I spoke up against this then they would take away my college fund from me. Back then, I was just 19, I didn't have much money of my own and I intended on getting a master's degree as well, so I really needed the financial help. And that's fine, even when I found out that Melissa had been having an affair, I still stayed quiet and it cost me everything. I still get to study, that was not the issue, but it cost me all my friends and my mental health. A couple of weeks before the wedding, Melissa's boyfriend and affair partner, Leo, reached out to me and told me that he knew that Melissa was engaged, but they had been hooking up forever now, and she had been telling him that she would break off the engagement at some point, but she never had and he was getting desperate. Leo had been Melissa's boyfriend in high school, but they had broken up in their senior year. And before the wedding, I understood that she had reconciled with him, but because her husband was a lot richer than he was, she had decided to get married to him, even though she was continuing to see him behind her husband's back. It was really messy and I told Leo that I would try to talk to her and find a way out of this because I could see that he really loved her, and he was so desperate that he had actually reached out to me and confessed everything. But when I spoke to Melissa about it, she told me to stay out of it and made me block Leo everywhere. Unfortunately, Leo also had a younger sister who was in the same year as me, and she knew everything. So she told all my friends about what I was doing and made it out to be like I was on Melissa's side and I had helped ruin her brother's life because once Melissa got married, Leo couldn't take it and started drinking relentlessly. Of course, I can't exactly blame his sister for believing that I was a part of this because my behavior had been like that. I hadn't been strong enough to take a stand for myself, and after Leo's sister told everybody in our year about Melissa and my involvement in the whole thing, people started cutting me off left and right. Even my closest friends, the people who had known me from literally elementary school, started cutting out of their lives too. They didn't even offer any explanation, they didn't have to, because I knew what it was about. People started ghosting me and I started distancing myself from my college friends as well because I was so disappointed with everything that was going on. I couldn't even blame anybody else, this was all my own fault. So I did the only thing that I could possibly do, I threw myself into my academics and I did exceedingly well. But unfortunately, my mental health went for a toss, and I have been severely depressed for the past 2 years. Nobody knows about it, but I've seen my therapist and I have been clinically diagnosed. I try to mask everything and I don't even have a relationship with my family anymore because they disgust me, but I needed the money, so I have still maintained a civil relationship with them. However, all of that went out of the window last week, when I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw Melissa posting a bunch of photos with our parents, and from the background and stuff, I could tell that this was a celebration of some sort. After going through all the slides and the caption, I realized that my parents had gone to Hawaii to renew their house for their 30th marriage anniversary, and pretty much everyone they knew had been invited, including my sister, obviously. The only person who had been left out? Yeah, it had to be me. I was obviously shocked because I had no idea this was even happening, and then, of course, there was the disappointment that I hadn't even been invited. I knew that I wasn't particularly close to my family, but this seemed like a huge insult. Especially considering the fact that I had kept all their secrets for so many years, even at the cost of my own friendships and mental health. Granted, I did stand to gain something from keeping those secrets, but even then, I felt like the least they could have done was at least pretend that they cared about me. I was hurt and angry after I saw those pictures without me in them, and in the heat of the moment, I decided to wait for them to come back and then, I would post all the dirt that I had on them. And 2 days later, when they did come back, I did exactly that. I made a post exposing all of them, but especially Melissa. Because I knew that it would hurt my brother-in-law, and there was no way that he would continue to stay married to her after he found out that he had been cheated on, God knows how many times. And about 3 days back, after I finally made that post, my family finally started paying attention to me. But it makes no difference to me because I know what I did and I have no regrets. It's going to cost me because I'm pretty sure that now I'm going to have to arrange for my own tuition money, since my parents are definitely not going to be funding me anymore. However, at least I have the satisfaction of knowing that I got back at them. And karma is really hitting back because, from what I know, Melissa's husband has decided to file for a divorce because after I made that post, I even sent him irrefutable proof of Melissa cheating on him. Leo had sent me some screenshots of his conversations with Melissa, back when he was trying to get me to help them out, and that's what I forwarded to my brother-in-law, after 2 years of keeping them to myself. And of course, because my brother-in-law has been hurt, his parents are not taking this lightly either. And basically, my parents have had their retirement plans wrecked by their favorite daughter because Melissa's in-laws are no longer going to remain on board as investors, and whatever business dealings they had, they are going to be backing out of it. So of course, it's going to mean huge losses for my father because this is definitely going to affect his standing in the business. And all I can do is laugh at their condition right now because I think this was a long time coming. They have been texting me. I'm trying to reach out to me in whichever way they can, but I've continued to block them everywhere. But the only thing that has made me feel guilty so far is a message that I received from Melissa this morning. She told me that whatever I was doing, it was even more disgusting than whatever our family had been up to so far, but it just goes to show that I'm not different from them. I'm just as vindictive and petty, and the fact that I'm only doing this because I hadn't been invited to the vow renewal ceremony is literally just pathetic. She accused me of ruining her marriage, and now, even her daughter is going to suffer because of my pettiness. Melissa also said that it was crazy that I was acting so holy and stuff when in reality, I had also benefited from everything that I was calling my family out for. And that was true. Like I said, the only reason I was able to get through college and get my bachelor's degree without having to work or take out a student loan was because of everything that my parents and Melissa had planned. And even now that I am pursuing my master's degree, my parents have been covering my expenses, but of course, after this, I'm gonna have to figure something out on my own. However, whatever Melissa has said about this, it's really made me think about my part in all of this. It made me feel really guilty because even though I knew that everything that was going on was wrong, I never spoke up about it until recently, because I wanted to ruin things for everyone else simply because I was being sidelined. So Ida for trying to take revenge on my family and exposing them, even though I had been living off of them until recently? Edit. Hey, I know a lot of people are confused as to whether Melissa ended the affair with Leo after she got married, or not, since I had mentioned that she had been cheating on my brother-in-law for the past 2 years. And to clear your doubts, yes, Melissa had indeed continued to see Leo after she got married, even until recently. I know that because even though Leo stopped contacting me after Melissa made me block him, his sister unfortunately didn't. For the past 2 years, she has made it a point to remind me that in spite of the way Melissa has treated him, Leo still keeps going back to her, and she keeps me in the loop. Not out of kindness or whatever, she just wants me to know that her brother is throwing away his entire life after my sister, and she thinks that I'm an equal part of this, so she keeps tormenting me as well. I could block her or mute her, but I haven't. It just didn't feel appropriate, and I feel like I was punishing myself in some way. So I know that they are still seeing each other, and I know that Leo is still hitting the bottles because his sister tells me about it regularly. It's all pretty dramatic, but well, that's how I know. And also, just to be clear, I don't expect any sympathy. I don't expect people to feel bad for me because I've been suffering from depression or whatever, because I know that I could have been honest with my brother-in-law and his family and told them what my parents and Melissa were planning, that they were just intending to use them for their own benefit, and Melissa did not actually love her husband, because if she did, she wouldn't have been cheating on him with Leo even after her daughter was born. I do admit that I have been selfish and maybe I'm no better than my family at all. I'm totally prepared to accept that. But what I don't need to know is whether what I did recently was a bad move or not, because my motives were to get back at my parents and Melissa for pushing me to the sidelines constantly. I was not doing this for some noble cause. I was not doing this because I wanted to do the right thing. I was just doing it because I wanted to get back at these people. I know it sounds petty, but that's what it really was, and I'm ashamed of it. I feel guilty about everything, and it's really important for me to know whether I did the right thing or not, or if I should really feel bad about it. Update 1. Hi. So thank you so much for all the comments and the input that you guys had. For everyone who was kind and gentle with me, thank you. For everyone who wasn't, thank you for that as well, because I guess I needed both sides. Anyway, I have decided to stay away from my family because I think that is best for me. That's something that I should have decided a really long time ago, but anyway, better late than never. From what I know, my parents and Melissa are in a very chaotic situation right now, and they are doing everything in their power to save Melissa's marriage because they cannot let this go down the drain. And I can totally understand that their entire livelihood depends on this. Melissa has never worked in her life, she probably doesn't intend on doing so in the future either, and she needs her husband to stay with her so she can continue to live off of his money. Plus, she also has a daughter to think about, and that's probably the only part that I feel bad about. As for my parents, they need Melissa to stay married to her husband and work things out because they don't want her in-laws to back out of their business dealings. That's going to seriously harm their retirement plan, and I'm assuming that they can't afford that. So they are going all out to keep Melissa and her husband together. For that reason, they have thrown me under the bus entirely and have made several posts about how I'm only doing all of this because I'm jealous of them and I have mental problems. Well, I can't deny the latter part. I do suffer from depression, so I guess that's true. But I'm definitely not jealous of my parents or Melissa. I'm pretty happy with who I am as a person because I know that I'm still better than them. At least I feel remorse about everything that I have done wrong, which I don't think they do, and I think they never will either. Anyway, the rest of the family has reached out to me and told me that they do believe me and they are not speaking to my parents or Melissa. Everyone is pretty shocked by the revelations that have been made in the post that I put up, and I still haven't taken it down, even though I have blocked my family. I'm content that even though I was pretty late, at least I've done the right thing now. And I had already been applying to jobs so I could start paying for stuff myself. I guess I'm also going to start trying to take out a student loan or something so I can continue pursuing my master's degree. I know it's going to be hard, but I've taken the easy way out earlier and I didn't feel too good, so I guess I'm gonna have to take the difficult way out now. Update 2. Hey, it's been 3 days since my last update, and today, all of a sudden, Leo's sister actually reached out to me, but instead of trying to remind me that Melissa had ruined Leo's life, she thanked me. She told me that she had heard from Leo what was going on with Melissa, and apparently, Melissa had told Leo that she was not going to be able to see him for some time, given everything that was going on in her life. She had told him that after this, she was either going to stay committed to her husband if it worked out with him, or she was going to leave him and commit to Leo instead. All he had to do was wait for her, and they ended up fighting because Leo said that he had waited for her enough. The only reason he had allowed himself to be treated like that all these years was because ultimately, he had hoped that someday, Melissa would leave her husband and come to him. But now, the fact that she was even considering leaving Leo behind and making things work with her husband just because he was financially better off, he couldn't take it anymore and he needed commitment from her. So of course, Leo is not as innocent as his sister had made him out to be, but he was just deluded and foolish. And of course, he was in love with Melissa, so that played a huge part in his ridiculous behavior. But even he is beginning to see how Melissa is as a person right now, and they had a huge fight, after which, Melissa told him that she would not be seeing him again. And Leo's sister decided to reach out to me and thank me because she thinks that I finally did something good by speaking up about the truth, and eventually, it led to Leo breaking up with Melissa for good. He's obviously still very upset about it and has been drinking nonstop, but his sister is hopeful that at least now, he is going to see Melissa for what she really is and stop trying to get with her and being a homewrecker. And honestly, I hope the same for him too, because both Melissa and Leo need serious help. I think it's better if they stay away from each other, even if Melissa ends up getting divorced from her husband. As a matter of fact, I think it will be better for everyone if Melissa and Leo stay away from literally everybody, because both of them are clearly unstable and are not fit to be in a relationship. Here I was, thinking I was messed up, but I strongly believe now that my entire family has something very wrong going on with them, to be honest. Anyway, that was about Melissa and Leo. Now, moving on to my parents, they are still talking crap about me to everybody in the family, but nobody is buying it. Because all along, I have always been known as the quiet kid of the family and I've never been one for drama. So literally nobody has any reason to doubt me, and besides, in my post, I had even talked about my own shortcomings. I hadn't made myself out to be a perfect person or whatever, I had admitted that I had screwed up as well, and I had been selfish too, but at the same time, I had also made a lot of sacrifices for my family and yet, they couldn't see that, they only appreciated Melissa. If I actually had to lie about my parents and Melissa, I wouldn't make myself look like the bad guy either. I would make myself look completely perfect, which I didn't. And I think that's a good enough reason for my relatives not to doubt me. From what I'm getting to hear, Melissa's husband has refused to try and work things out with her, but she is refusing to give up on the relationship. She and our parents are still insisting that I am crazy and jealous, and that's why I've been trying to ruin everything for my family. The reason I know about all of this is because Melissa is quite close to a cousin of ours. And this cousin happens to be really big gossip, just like Melissa. So this cousin of ours has been talking to me as well because she wants to know my side of the story too. I don't really enjoy gossiping, but this is the only way I get to find out about what's going on with my parents and Melissa, so this is a small price to pay. Anyway, the point is that things are not really looking up for Melissa right now, and I'm pretty sure that she is going to get divorced. It's shocking that even after so much has happened, my brother-in-law hasn't blocked me, and neither have my in-laws. I think I'm pretty much the only person from our family who they haven't blocked yet, but I'm guessing it's only because they expect me to post something else and they don't want to miss out on that. And even though they haven't blocked me, they haven't reached out to me or whatever either. It's actually good, in a way, that they haven't, because I don't think I'll be able to speak to my brother-in-law since I know that I could have prevented all of this from happening and I didn't. And that's going to eat away at me forever, but well, I've dug my grave and I've had to lie in it as well. I can't change the past, but at least I'm doing the best that I can right now, and I'm just hoping that it's enough for everyone. Update 3. Hi, so it's been 3 weeks since my last update and I have kept in touch with my cousin. She has been keeping me in the loop about everything that was going on with Melissa and my parents. And finally, 2 days back, she told me that Melissa and her husband were headed toward a divorce. Apparently, so far, her husband had been staying in a hotel with their daughter and had refused to see her or entertain any of her attempts to clear the air or get back together. And then, last evening, he came back home and picked Melissa out of the house in spite of her many requests not to do so. Melissa had been devastated, but ultimately, she had to come back home to stay with our parents, and she had ended up venting to our cousin about everything. Mostly, she had just blamed me for whatever was going wrong because not only had she lost her husband and the life that she had built for herself, but she also lost Leo, and she apparently really loved him. I don't understand how she was planning on carrying on this charade forever, staying with her husband and having kids with him just to maintain a certain kind of lifestyle, but behind his back, she would keep seeing Leo and she genuinely thought that this was fine and she would never get caught. Granted, she didn't actually get caught for the first 2 years, but she had to know that ultimately, something or somebody would break and everything would come out into the open. I don't understand how she's blaming me for all of this, because even if I hadn't said anything, at some point, maybe Leo or his sister might have said something to her husband. The only reason Leo had kept quiet all along was because he had expected that at some point, Melissa would leave her husband and be with him instead, and that's why he had been holding on to that hope. And the only reason his sister had never said anything was because obviously, she was highly doubtful that anybody would even believe her, and on top of that, she would end up ruining her relationship with her brother forever if she said anything to Melissa's husband to ruin their marriage. But apart from that, a lot of people knew, nobody just ever said anything because they didn't want to get caught up in the crossfire. Just like me, and yet, things did come out eventually, but I don't think I'm the one to blame here. If she didn't want her life to get ruined, she probably shouldn't have screwed it all up for herself. And even now, she's being a total idiot by venting to our cousin, in spite of knowing that she's total gossip and literally everything that she has been telling our cousin, it has been reported to me. I don't understand if she is really that naive or if she's just plain stupid. But it's whatever, she totally deserves this. Update 4, so the divorce is finally happening. Melissa has announced it on social media and of course, she couldn't let it go without blaming me for all of it. In the caption itself, she said that very unhappy, she was going to have to let go of her marriage of 2 years, just because I decided to spread some nasty rumors and lies about her and ruin the relationship between the two families. So I'm guessing that my parents are also not going to have anything to do with Melissa's in-laws anymore because they are backing out of all their business dealings. That means their retirement plans are going to take a serious hit, but I guess they have a backup plan as well because from what I heard from my cousin, Melissa is planning on asking for an insane amount of alimony and child support. She hasn't been working ever since she got engaged, so she's probably going to get her way, but I really hope that she doesn't. In fact, if her soon-to-be ex-husband asked me to testify against her in family court or something, I'd gladly do it. I have a feeling he might because he still hasn't blocked me, and in a very cryptic way, he has actively been liking everything that I have been posting, even though it hasn't had anything to do with my family recently. And before you guys jump the gun, I'm pretty sure he doesn't like me or whatever. We have always had a very cordial relationship, but that's about it. Anyway, I know that the divorce is going to be pretty ugly, and he just wants to keep all his options open, which is probably why he is trying to keep in touch with me, because he might need my help in the future. And when he does need it, I'll be glad to offer it. As for myself, I'm still going to continue my education, no matter what, and I've also heard back from a couple of places. The interviews I have had so far have mostly been positive, and I'm hoping to get a job at a decent place in a couple of weeks maybe. I've also spoken to a couple of my relatives, and one of my uncles has agreed to co-sign and take out a student loan with me so I can continue my education, because now I know that my parents will obviously not be helping me out anymore. Of course, if I default on any payment, I'll have to pay him back, but I'm not worried about that. I have my mind made up, and I know for a fact that I'm going to do well for myself in the future. I've also started therapy because I know that I have a lot to deal with emotionally, and I'm going to try and fight my way out of everything that I'm going through. I have wallowed in self-pity for long enough. It's about time that I start taking charge of my own life, and I'm gonna start now. Thanks for reading.